As everyone who watches this show knows, I love history. So I hear there's a new Cleopatra thing coming out. I say, oh, great, Cleopatra. What a fascinating era, the Macedonian age, the declining, intersections with the Rome. We've had all those famous, the Mark Antony stuff. I said, maybe that'll get into it. But then it turns out the huge controversy erupts because, let's put this up there on the screen, Netflix's new Cleopatra / historical series cast Cleopatra as Black. Now, I personally had never thought about it. I mean, it was a little bit weird, but it has caused enormous consternation actually in Egypt because the Egyptians say that and I'm not just saying the Egyptians, I'm talking about the Egyptian government is calling out the United States and Netflix for casting a Black actress to play Cleopatra. They claim that we are falsifying Egyptian history. We are desecrating their heritage, their government, their antiquity, their overall history that is not accurate and not true, which has now caused, Ryan, a great study into what was Cleopatra. It turns out, that from 323 BC, we don't actually have a particularly good view into what the racial makeup was of some of these figures. It's like Jesus, we don't actually know all that much about Jesus. There's some accounts that say this, there's some accounts that say that. Well, same thing apparently is true of Cleopatra. The general consensus is that she had Persian ancestry of some kind. We know that she was
Ptolemy, right?
The Ptolemaic dynasty, that she had Persian ancestry of some kind, that she possibly had some intermingling ancestry involving slaves, but that to be a noble woman or whatever at that time very likely had the hue of what you would, that you would relate an Egyptian person who's not Black to be. Okay, so that's the general historical consensus, according to the Egyptians too. Okay, but again, we don't technically know. Well, what I love this is that this is peak Westerners in putting their own BS onto other cultures and then finding out that other cultures don't actually agree with us at all and actually get very angry. And it resulted in this New York Times op-ed that we showed you, Fear of a Black Cleopatra. Now, this was by an associate professor of philosophy at the University of Missouri and Dr. Gilbert, an assistant professor of classics at Mississippi State University. This op-ed is probably best noted as what actual critical race theory looks like. If people want to know critical race theory, they're always like, well, that's a graduate level. This is a pretty good view into what it is. And our friend Richard Hanania actually flagged, for me, my favorite part. Let's put it up there on the screen. They say, quote, Netflix's casting was informed by the views of Shelley Haley, who claims that although evidence of her ancestry and physical attributes are inconclusive, Cleopatra was culturally Black. And so, what does that remind you of, Ryan? That reminds me of Rachel Dolezal. And so, as Richard so aptly puts it there, they basically are saying that Cleopatra is the ancient Rachel Dolezal, which is certainly something. So I'm curious what you make of this entire thing.
Well, it's absurd. It's incorrect.
Yeah, it's just wrong. Yeah, that's why I'm like, what are you talking about?
There was no such thing as Black in Egyptian culture.
Correct.
At that time.
Right. Not until later.
Therefore, you can't be culturally Black. It's just false. Now, I was doing some research to get ready for this segment, and I looked into another historical drama called Hamilton. And what I have done—
Great show, by the way.
And I have uncovered a couple of disturbing facts.
Okay.
One is that George Washington was a character in the drama Hamilton.
Yes. Played by a Black man.
Was not Black.
Yeah.
He was white.
True.
Did you know that George Washington was white?
I did not know that. Oh, thank you.
Aaron Burr. Also white.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
Hamilton, despite being born in the Caribbean, also white.
Also white, right.
So I think we're going to need a pretty, serious run of corrections in the way that they portrayed.
I actually think this is a fair point, which is who cares at all? The only reason I think this is funny is because of the whole ancient Rachel Dolezal thing. And I don't know why they just didn't do what Hamilton did. The guy, what's his name? Lin-Manuel Miranda, the way he wrote Hamilton, his explanation was, it's America before told by America now. I'm like, okay, cool. You know, I was like, whatever.
You're the artist.
Yeah, yeah. It's like your show. By the way, it's a great show. I actually recommend people go and watch it. I know it sounds cringe, but it genuinely is a great show. The songs are fantastic. It's fun. It's very captivating for 2.5 hours. And the theater is also much smaller than you would expect. You know, when you're there, it felt much more intimate. No, it's a lot of fun actually. My point being, there's a way to do that and just be like, yeah, it's not, you know, it's sort of, but, and I think this is where in America, I think the idea of a heterogeneous multiracial society is much more baked into kind of who we are. Whereas in Egypt, not so much. And that was part of the problem, is that they were then trying to basically Western explain, like American explain, Egyptian culture to Egyptians, and they were like, no, we're not going to be handling this. So it's caused a global freak out. I think they might actually ban it in Egypt, this entire claim, which is actually a whole other, you know, it's like, who cares, guys? Come on, you know, it's like.
Yeah, and I think most people know the barstool history of the production of race as a thing, but if people don't, you know, it comes from mostly, you know, South America and the Caribbean after the Spanish and then other European colonists came. And it was a way to basically implant a hierarchy, because you had people who were born. So you had, you know, the highest in the hierarchy are Europeans born in Europe who have then come over to South America or to the Caribbean. Then below that you have Europeans who are born in South America and in the Caribbean, but then they have their own pride because they're born there and they're calling themselves kind of native to this land. But then you have intermingling mestizo and mulatto. Like you have, if you go to say Haiti or so, there's something like 15 different lists of like, all right, if you have you know, one a grandfather that's this and one, and they became legal. Now the Haitians banned that and tossed it after the revolution, but that's kind of where it comes
I was about to say, I actually recommend, Dan Carlin has a series on Haiti and the racial obsessiveness. It makes me want to vomit when I listen to it, because you're exactly right. Everything was ordered by drops of blood. Like they'd be like, oh, that's an octoroon, as in you have 1/8 of black blood. Then they're like, no, that's a quadroon, as in you have. It's like, oh, this is reading it is literally repulsive, because that's not only the way that their society was ordered, it was the way that money was distributed, and it was the way through which power and all of that worked, which all was obviously on top of the most horrific conditions of slavery literally in the entire world at the time, which led to the revolution. What was the name? Toussaint? I forget his
Toussaint.
name. Yeah, the name of the person, it's like the Haitian George Washington.
He was just celebrated in France.
Good.
Macron went to the prison where he died in France.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because Napoleon went and got him.
That's right, yeah, which actually that's, kind of precipitated why Napoleon didn't want anything to do with the American colonies, Louisiana Purchase. There's a lot of our own history actually intertwined with that. And you're right, and I'm glad that you brought that up, which is that the way that we think about race today is much more a byproduct of the repulsive historical legacy of the Spanish and Spanish and Portugal African slave trade than anything that happened, 2,000-3,000 years ago.
Like the Moor of Venice is, nobody in the play considers the Moor to be racially inferior.
Oh, good point. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I never thought about that. So, because it was right around that age of Spanish-American concept.
People understood that some people had different skin colors, but that's not how they judged people. It was more, now, there was plenty of tribalism, and you might have tribalist ideas about the Persians or about the Egyptians, but it wasn't. It only became codified by skin color, thanks to the colonialists over here in North and South America.
Well, shout out to them, I guess. I guess they're gone. I'm glad we're gone.
But that's why the Egyptians are like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, the Egyptians are like, we don't do this over here. Okay, all right, we'll see you guys later.
Hey guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now, and Saagar and I have been brainstorming ways that we can really up our game for this critical election.
Yeah, we rely on our premium subs to expand our coverage, to add staff, to upgrade the studio. We just want to give you the best independent coverage of this election, which is possible. So if you can help us out, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com, or the link is down here in the description video. It really means the world to us, and if you like what we're all about, this is the best possible way to keep us 100% independent, working only for you.